Community violence intervention is important because we cannot police our way to safer communities. It's really important that community, people who have lived experiences, people who have connections to their neighborhood, have an opportunity to see themselves as leaders and for our youth to see folks as leaders as well. A lot of times, especially in Black and brown communities, young people think that there are very limited options of what they can do in life. But when you see a person who may have made mistakes rehabilitate themselves and step into a leadership position, I think that's the only way that we'll start to see the outcomes that we're looking to see.
Instilling the knowledge and educating the community on its own powers and its own abilities will help the community understand its role when it comes to building out a public safety ecosystem and having that ecosystem thrive. Because it wasn't until I understood, my power as a citizen when it comes to voting, when it comes to speaking at your council, when it comes to speaking at school board, when it comes to even holding your own community town halls and organizing with your neighbors, just on an organic grassroots level. You're taught surface level approaches to government, but you don't get really deep. But it wasn't until I got below the surface that I was like, okay, the light bulb went off. And then once I found out, it was like go back and build up my neighbors, my peers, those engaging in the activities. And then once those that engaged in the activities found out other opportunities, alternative ways of living, alternative ways of making money, then they're gonna connect.
The community violence intervention work that we do, it started out as a very site-specific project in one of the municipalities with the highest incidence of gun violence, which is where our organization is based, that is the town of Loíza. And in the first year implementation, we saw a 53% drop in gun violence deaths. It was so dramatic for the community, that drop, that the community just asked how they could also be part of that initiative and what could be done to keep the program running. So that's been our story.
So we are measuring success of our CVI strategy using a multi-pronged approach. So what we're tracking are deaths by gunfire, shootings, and we're tracking shots in the air. And so we believe that we can reduce all of those activities by about 50% in 3 years. The other thing we're doing is trying to assess the community's perspective of safety. And so we're doing qualitative interviews and focus groups to see if people feel safer in their neighborhoods. And so sometimes the murder rate might be down, but we're still having shots fired in certain neighborhoods. And so we want to hear the perspective of people who actually live on those blocks and communities to determine if there are other things that we ought to be focused on to help improve community safety.
In the city of Baton Rouge, where we have a collaboration between our partners that are on the ground, an initiative called Safe, Hopeful, Healthy, and couple that with our law enforcement, we're able to see changes in our homicides, our non-fatals, and our violent crime. Specifically for homicides, we're seeing a reduction of 20% year over year. In our area of non-fatal shootings, we have seen a small uptick, but not nearly as much as you would consider in prior years. And for violent crime, we're actually seeing a reduction. So that lets us know that overall, we're seeing shifts in our community as a consequence of the work that's being done on the ground.
When communities are culturally transformed, when we go into a neighborhood in a community, the language of the community changes. When we go into a community, the expectation of the youth changes. Many people who are lifeguards, they spend their whole career lifeguarding and maybe have saved 1, 2, or 3 lives, if that. But how valuable is it? Particularly if that life is yours or that life is mine. And so we have to understand the importance of that.
I was raised by a father who was incarcerated for 35 years. But his story and his life was really dedicated to making sure that I made good decisions. He was a very active parent. We were raised through phone calls and conversations and discipline. But looking at the trajectory of something that quite honestly I grew up being ashamed of, but now being the ideal person to be able to share lived experiences or to tell youth that your story and where you're starting does not have to be where you end. So I'm really grateful that God aligned purpose and work for me to be able to move in this space.